tape right here.
China's kind of bad on that. It's big.
Basically, I'll ask you. No, I just want to ask you about what Brian is called in these things. Talk like Joe Walker. We called their people and they said they don't think it's a good idea.
For Roy to go on?
No, for you.
Why not?
I don't know.
Who said that?
You didn't talk to Lee or Bobby Street?
No, I've been anxious to go on Joe Walker's program. Sunday afternoon.
Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 p.m.
I can do it now. Do the same day as Roy.
Okay. I'll let them know because they were kind
You
of
ready?
upset.
These are Girl Scouts. Welcome to your state capital. We've been in this campaign now for almost a year, and we've been listening to each other's speeches, and we've been looking at each other's advertising, and I think it's time we get down to really facing some of the hard facts. It's time really for some honest talk about education in the state of Georgia. Too many of our children are suffering. They're dropping out of school. They're falling short of the national norms on achievement tests. And as a result, many of them are drifting into the horrors of crime and drugs. And as we look to the future, to the rest of the 90s and the approaching dawn of the 21st century, we all know that it's time for a new day and new leadership that will encourage every child in our state to achieve their highest goals, and a change that will ensure that they have the educational resources and support that they deserve. Our children are suffering because the state of Georgia has fallen woefully short on its responsibility to provide quality education for all its children. For too long, the politicians at the state capitol have given only lip service to the challenge of educating our children, while Georgia continues to lag behind in national achievement. They have sold Georgia as a low-wage and low-skills workforce, and that must change. In 1974, the year that Zell Miller became Georgia's lieutenant governor, and Roy Barnes joined the state senate, the newspaper headlines warned us all of the dangerous road down which our state was headed. Quote, "State's pupils lag on tests. State schools, mediocrity hit. Education in Georgia, poor student performance." These are just a few of the headlines from 1974. And in 1975, it was, quote, "Georgia's students still continue to lag." In 1977, it was, "College test scores are low and teachers becoming new dropouts." In 78, it was, "Georgia's test scores still low." And in 84, it was, "State schools flunk in 50-state ranking." And it goes on and on until this very day. Quote, "Georgia ranks 30th in average pay for teachers, and Georgia dropout rate sinks to third worst," are among our latest headlines. The warning signs were there. The facts and figures were plain. And yet, after 16 years of Zell Miller, Roy Barnes, and Lauren McDonald, Georgia's students are still at the back of the class too often. The statistics of 1974 were startling, to say the least. Sadly, in 1990, after 16 years, very little has changed. The statistics still leave one frightened about our future. Today, 39% of Georgia's students drop out before completing high school, up 4 points since 1982, and still third in the nation. SAT scores are 56 points below the national average, and teacher pay has climbed to 30th in the nation, but Georgia's teachers still make $3,000 a year less than the national average. Georgia's per pupil spending ranks number 39 in the nation, and we've fallen to 44th in per capita spending on higher education. Education spending in Georgia has increased over the past 16 years, but much of that growth is really the result of inflation. It does not reflect real dollar gains for our children in the classroom. But most disturbing of all is where the dollars are going. In 1974, Georgia spent 73 cents of every education dollar on classroom instruction. In every year since that time, the politicians have taken money away from the classrooms and put it into the bureaucracy. Today, just 52 cents out of every dollar is spent on education in the classroom. That means that almost half of every education dollar goes into bureaucracy. Now that's a crime. How can my opponents justify spending more and more money each year on bureaucrats and administrators while they shortchange our children and teachers in the classroom? In this year, Zell and Roy have made seemingly endless promises and proposals for improving education in the state. But I ask you today, where has Zell Miller's commitment to education been for the past 16 years? Why should we believe that Governor Zell Miller will be one bit more effective in reforming education in Georgia than Lieutenant Governor Zell Miller has been? Under Roy Barnes, Governor Roy Barnes, will the headlines on education read any different than they have read under Senator Roy Barnes? No doubt Zell Miller has talked about his support for education. But Georgia needs more than just talk. We need leadership to ensure that education is Georgia's highest priority, that Georgia's children and Georgia's classrooms are number one. As governor, I will bring a fresh new approach to education at the state capitol, a progressive approach that moves us beyond politics as usual. Voters have to be careful to listen very closely to Mr. Miller as he talks about his efforts in education over the years. Georgia's voters must know that the office of Lieutenant Governor is fully independent of the governor's office. As Lieutenant Governor, Zell appointed the chairman of the Education Committee, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, and selected members of the Budget Conference Committee that meets each year to decide what our state spends on education. In 16 years as Lieutenant Governor, Zell Miller has had the power and the opportunity to improve education in the state of Georgia. Yet too many of our children are still suffering, dropping out, lagging behind the nation. Zell has held one of the three most powerful positions at the state capitol for 16 whole years, and yet he would have us believe that he is an outsider who bears little or no responsibility for the current educational direction of our state. For all the rhetoric, Zell Miller has failed the citizens of Georgia, failed the children that are key to our future. In his own television commercials, Zell laments over the sad education statistics that Georgia has racked up over the years. That is the ultimate hypocrisy. Zell Miller is a part of the political establishment, a politician who has forgotten the most important part of his constituency, the children of this state. Georgia needs a governor who understands leadership, understands the importance of education, and has the political courage to stand firmly in support of our children. As governor, I pledge that the rhetoric of the past will be replaced by action, and that education in our state will never again become victim of politics as usual. Working together, we can make Georgia's classrooms and our children number one. Thank you very much. Yes? 5% would remain constant. as the state budget grew with it. We could have a lottery if the citizens decide to vote for it. But our educational system's improvement shouldn't depend on a lot. It could give us an opportunity to do some new things. $1 billion budget. I think that we just got to start with that as a priority and then allocate other things from there on.
In the past, you have been quoted as referring to yourself as the guiding force in reform of Atlanta city schools, and yet that it's hypocrisy.
Well, first of all, I have no official responsibility for education. Education is completely separate from the office of the mayor. My involvement with education has been strictly pro bono. I have visited schools, I support the schools. We arranged for our high school graduates last year to get $20.9 million in scholarship money for further study. I think we have a dropout rate in Atlanta that is much lower, down around 24%. I asked the police to work and I never turned down an opportunity to visit a school. We had a mayor's scholarship that we gave for 30% of our sales tax funds into education. But I did not have anything to do with the Board of Education or the line item administration of our public education system. Indeed, by law, we are prevented from interfering with the decision making of the school board, except insofar as we're involved in helping to get members elected and defeated, and I choose not to do that.
I want to make sure I understand. Your 52 cents in the dollar goes to classroom education. You want to increase the total state education commitment to 55%. Some costs are going to be administrative. You're not going to have much more than 52% devoted to classroom either.
Well, I think it depends on how you're working at it. You see, we've been working for the last 16 years, it seems, on strengthening the administrative role section of our school system. And I would work to strengthen the classroom teacher so that if I were...
What is a bureaucratic appointment? Give us an example of a job.
Anything above the principal. Student and classroom teacher.
Isn't there an analogy that can be drawn here, though, with your own record as mayor on the issue of crime? The state, you say the crime figures are deceptive and don't reflect the true picture. You say Del Miller was responsible and should take the blame for these